The city of Ciudad Juárez, which borders El Paso, has by far been the most violent area, with more than 4,300 people killed in the past 2 years. That's in a city of 1.3 million, making Ciudad Juárez one of the deadliest places in the world. Charles Bowden is a reporter who's extensively covered drug violence in Mexico for many years. He's the author of 11 books. His latest is Murder City, Ciudad Juárez, and the Global Economy's New Killing Fields. Charles Bowden joins us now here in our Democracy Now! Studios. Welcome to Democracy Now! It's nice to have you in the studio rather than talking to you on the phone in Arizona or New Mexico.
I don't know if that's true, but thanks for having me.
Well, Michelle Obama is in Mexico City right now. Talk about what's happening in Mexico.
What's happening is this thing started in 2006 with a new president as a statement of his personal power. Mano dura. I'm the strong man. He ripped the mask off Mexico. In other words, he was going to claim he's the big guy. And the mask he ripped off revealed what's really going on in Mexico: mass poverty and social disintegration. Now it's turned into a war by the Mexican government against the Mexican people. One of the lies Michelle Obama will be told is that 90% of the dead people or drug people are dirty. That's a damn lie. They're just a bunch of nobodies from little towns. Nobody can identify them as cartel leaders. The second thing she'll be told is we're winning the war on drugs. The war on drugs is over. There isn't a city in this country where anybody's having a panic because the drugs haven't arrived this week. What you're seeing is a slaughterhouse, and it's escalating. And it's not going to end. And I should say one last thing. We're paying for it. We're giving him $500 million a year to the Mexican army, which is marauding in the country.
And what of this new internal Mexican government report saying the number of deaths has reached nearly 23,000 in the last 3 years?
Well, they're going to have to build their own little Vietnam memorial. They're holding a Vietnam against their own people within their own country. 3 years, they've slaughtered 23,000, and that's a minimum. That doesn't count the people that disappear, and they disappear all the time. The army takes them away or someone else. If the Mexican government says 23,000, you can be sure there's more dead. Now, Juarez is running a murder rate of about 200 per 100,000. The city's probably, New York's probably running, what, 9 or something? There's parts of the edges of Juarez that are running 1,600 per 100,000, which is the kill rate of an actual war. What you have to ask yourself is, why is this going on? Why are we talking about a war on drugs? Why are we giving half $500 million a year for this thing? When this war has been going on 40 years now, every drug is more available in this country than it was 40 years ago. Every drug has higher quality. Every drug is cheaper. This is a war that benefits prison guards, federal agents, the drug cartels, I mean the drug organizations that produce it, and slaughters poor people that consume drugs. And in Mexico, slaughters poor people that want to sell drugs. What the Mexican government won't tell Michelle Obama is the addict rate in Mexico has exploded. In Ciudad Juárez in 1995, it was not easy to buy cocaine because the cartels kept a lid on it. Now the city has up to 200,000 addicts, according to local clinics. This is happening all over Mexico. Part of the killing is there's a huge domestic market. But we've created, with a foreign policy, meaning our free trade treaty, is one, slave factories all over the country where nobody can live on the wages. 2 generations, at least, of feral kids on the street. 50% of the kids you'd call high school kids in Juarez neither go to school nor have jobs. They did a recent university study there, and they found out 40% of the kids in Chihuahua, young males, want to become sicarios, professional killers. We're looking at a Detroit, Baltimore, et cetera, where we've created something so bleak that crime is actually, and murder is a rational way to live. We're not going to put a lid on it by just saying no, by presidential visits, and by, we're now going to teach them how to run a court system, send our experts. Let me tell you something about the Mexican justice system. 93% of the people convicted there never see a judge. 93% of the people convicted there never see an arrest warrant. 92% of the people convicted there are convicted with no physical evidence. We'll skip that they're all tortured. There's essentially no jury trials. This is not a justice system. It's a murder system. You're processed like sausage. We're, quote, going to reform it. What we've done is what we've done historically. We've gotten on the wrong side. We're not siding with the Mexican people. We're siding with the people that own the country and terrorize them. I'll be calm now.
Well, you went to Juarez first in '95, and you write how you thought you'd stumbled into hell, but then later you realized that that was the golden age. In your book, you paint a very dark picture of Ciudad Juárez. Tell us about the city.
Okay, I'll tell you about the city now. 25% of the houses have been abandoned. In a city of poverty where housing's short, they've got a bumper crop there now, 10,000 new orphans from the slaughter. 40% of the businesses have closed. 30 to 60,000 people have fled to the United States. You know, this is a city dying. And I must say this was the poster child for NAFTA. This was supposed to make it all work. It's a laboratory now created by Dr. Frankenstein.
And you paint some very interesting pictures of the characters that you meet in this book, and one of them is Miss Sinaloa. Explain who she is.
Yeah, she was a beauty queen who came there for a party. Sinaloa, you know, turns out a dozen beauty queens a year. Drug guys get their girlfriends named Queen. She came there for a party and was gang raped for 3 days by the police and went insane and wound up at a mental institution run by a friend of mine, Pastor Galban, and slowly recovered. And I used her as an example of what the city does to people. Actually, the mental institution is full of former lap dancers and everything else who have just lost their minds. This is a city that destroys people. This is a city where Mexico used to tout it as having the lowest unemployment in Mexico. This is a city with 400 foreign factories, mainly U.S. This is a city where nobody listening to this program could survive 24 hours on those wages. This is a city where factories move from here to there, and what they paid here an hour, they're not even going to pay there a day.
Your figure, 2009, there were 2,660 murders in Juarez.
That's been updated to 2,753. We keep finding more dead people.
So 2,750, but only 30 arrests, not
right.
Convictions.
No, it's a joke.
Just arrests.
Look, you're in far more risk driving fast in Juarez and shooting somebody. You know, you're not going to be arrested. These recent consulate killings that caused Secretary Clinton and others to fly to Mexico City happened in broad daylight on a Saturday afternoon in front of City Hall in a city with 11,000 federal police and army, checkpoints everywhere. A convoy of cars, you know, follows these people and executes them, and nobody sees anything. And you can stand on the bridge going to El Paso and watch the whole scene. It's right at the base. There is no law enforcement.
You say it's a war for drugs.
Yeah, I'll tell you why. Look, 40% of the Mexican budget, for example, comes from their oil fields. Their oil fields are dying. This current president said they'll be gone in 9 years. The second licit leading source of money in Mexico is remittances from illegal Mexicans working here who send back 20, 25 billion a year. Drugs earns the country 30 to 50 billion a year. For Mexico to seriously say we're going to wipe out the drug industry would be saying we're going to commit suicide. The country's become dependent on it. It's a tiny economy compared to ours. It's 4% the size of the U.S. Drugs mean a great deal in that economy, that revenue stream. No, they're not going to destroy drugs. I'll give you another factoid. The Mexican government has announced they've made 53,000 drug arrests since they started this war. Less than 2% are the Sinaloa cartel, the biggest one. I guess they haven't had time. But,
and the U.S. is now funding to the tune of $500 million a year the Mexican government for this so-called drug war. How tied in is the Mexican military and the police in these killings?